Welcome back, everybody. Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. That's the gun. I'm Rob Ellis, hanging out with you on this Wednesday. Excited, always excited to talk a little football with our next guest. Does an awesome job covering the Birds, along with his partner, Adam Kaplan. He is the host and co-founder of Inside the Birds. You can check them out, insidethebirds.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Geoff, Geoff Mosher, Mosher. Geoff Mosher. What's up, Geoff? How you doing, bud?
Rob D. Gun, what's up, my friends?
My man, it's been too long.
This man has more side jobs than he has primary jobs. He's coaching. He's at graduations. I can't catch up with the guy. I thought he was avoiding me on purpose for a while.
He is. He didn't want to tell you, Derek, but he is avoiding you. Yeah.
But I remember what it's like when my kids were little, man. They stretch you all over the place. And this dude, I mean, if you could claim mileage, dude, for just being a father, you'd be a wealthy man.
If we could all claim body mileage, right, on our taxes where we get reimbursed for it, because I feel like I put on 10 years in the last 3 months, and my body feels like it.
Yes, I feel you, man. I hear you. Geoff, so a lot to get to. I want to pose this to you because I asked Derek in our audience in our chat section a little bit earlier, but for you, it's more of a generalized question when it comes to this Eagles team. But if you had to pinpoint one area that concerns you most going into this season, what would it be?
Oh, that punter battle is really on my mind. No,
that's real, man. Don't even start me with Stippos. All right,
don't get him hot, man. About Stippos.
My God,
it's real. Somebody's got to get hot about the punter, so I'm glad Rob does it. Yes. Listen, I think it sort of goes without saying that this is a completely remade defense up the middle, right? Yep. From your starting tackles to your starting linebackers to your starting safeties, and the way the Eagles build their team is from front to back. It's funny you asked that, Rob, because Adam asked me the same question on the podcast. What's my biggest concern? And he thought for sure I was going to say safety, just because when you look at the overall talent there and the distinguished talent, Sanders okay, but nothing special, right?
Right.
But I didn't, because the Eagles aren't built around their safeties. They're built from bottom to top, or top to bottom, inside out. And they've got a defensive tackle. They put a first-round pick in last year who couldn't play more than 8 snaps in a row without really losing his technique, and then he got hurt. Yep. And now they're once again sort of going into the at least offseason part camp without a true natural backup, because they didn't have Linval Joseph last year, right, until later in the year. And then, of course, Jalen Carter is going to step into, they hope to Javon Hargrave's spot, but we don't see rookie DTs get 12 to 15 sacks a whole lot. And again, he didn't play a ton of snaps also at Georgia because of their rotation. So because it all starts up front, and because we saw at times even last year that you could get them up the middle, I think that's the biggest concern right now is what are you getting up the middle of this? Because those linebackers, no matter how good Nakobe Dean is, and no matter how fast or quick Nick Morrow is, or Christian Ellis, if they're not clean, right, they're smaller guys. They're not clean. They got offensive linemen in their face. It's going to be bad defense. And so that's why what they've got up front has to come through better.
Great point.
Most, how concerned are you about the defensive leadership on this team when you look at their age? Fletcher Cox, 32, Brandon, 35, Slate's 32 now. Brandon had his best season career-wise in terms of sacks. Slate tailed off in the latter half of the season. Should age be a factor when we start looking at the leadership on that side of the ball?
Well, normally I like a few guys who've been through some wars, right? To be on the team because of leadership. I mean, age becomes a factor in how you're building your team. You're old at defensive end, so with BG, so you got Nolan Smith, right? Yeah. Little old at corner. Would have liked to have seen them get a corner a little higher than 4, but look, I get what they do. So and they wound up getting a safety that I've railed about no safeties in the first three rounds for years.
Yeah.
But they will eventually. They did sign Greedy Williams, right? They did put a lot into the rookie free agent at corner, so maybe they hit there. But I like their mix of veterans with youth, Gunner. But I am concerned, and it's really more of a discussion for down the road, right? Is what are your plans if you have some major injuries at these spots because of ages? Because you have depth in numbers, but I don't know if you have depth in talent.
Right.
That's a good point, Geoff. I want to circle back to your initial answer with Jordan Davis, because we were talking about him a little bit earlier as well. In one vein, I get it. He's a rookie. He didn't play a ton in Georgia. The ankle probably set him back. He had the head injury as well. All that has to be taken into account. But you really look at it, there's not a lot of impactful plays when he was on the field. And I just don't know right now. I'm not I can't be down on him after last year because they had a ton of depth and he didn't have to do a lot. But I feel, I said this earlier, a lot more confident about Jalen Carter for whatever reason than I do Jordan Davis. Where do you stand with him, and what do you expect in terms of snaps and productivity?
Well, I get why you would say that and I agree, because Jalen Carter, is built like a defensive tackle, a 3 technique type, a 5 technique. He doesn't have to make wholesale changes. He's not a guy who, outside of the pro day and everything, throughout his career struggled with weight. All you're worried about with Jalen Carter is mental, focus, coachable, good teammate, right? So the natural talent should transition very well to the NFL. Jordan Davis is a guy who has just almost otherworldly athleticism that should manifest itself into some great talent if coached correctly, if the diet is correct, if the condition is correct. That's all I'm starting to get if, right? Yeah. I'm not trying to say the guy can't be a good player. I'm just saying I think his drafting was more of being blown away by what he can do at that size, which very few human beings can be, than like 4 years of unbelievable college production. He did produce, but it was also on a line with so many other guys who did produce. And again, not playing that many snaps and struggling with the weight, and then seeing how that hurt him last year in both can't play too many snaps in a row. Then he got the ankle injury. Now we've been told he came back in great shape, that he's been coachable. He's a great kid. He's got the head on his shoulders. So like you, I don't dismiss it either, right? I sort of be more optimistic about what he'll be. But I do think that if you go through the first round picks in Eagles history, right, especially online, go through years where a guy was picked in that 10 to 15 range like Jordan Davis and the team didn't go to the Super Bowl, far more scrutiny, right? Like a guy like Broderick Bunkley got raked over the coals, right, for not being much of a producer as a rookie because the team had a scratch and claw to make the playoffs. Same thing with some other guys. He kind of flew under the radar and didn't get as much criticism because they were able to overcome it.
Yeah, good point.
So as we perceive Davis's growth, would you consider it an extreme disappointment if he's not playing a minimum, I'm saying bare minimum, 30, 35 snaps a game this season?
Boy, when you say that, knowing that he played like, at his best 15 to 20, right, but not even giving you great 21, it doesn't mean every snap he gave you was great, right? That seems like a pretty big jump. But right now, as we sit here today, Gunnar, with them not having a guy like Linval Jones, they didn't draft. The closest thing they have to someone who could fill that spot right now would be Christian Ellis's brother, Noah Ellis, right? The guy who tried to make the team last year and didn't. He's 340 pounds. So now, again, I think they proved they can go out and get that guy pretty easily if need to be. But just without having that guy that can go ahead and occupy that role, it's a little bit of a difficult projection for either. For the player or the state of the interior line.
Geoff, how about Nakobe Dean? And again, maybe this falls into something that's sort of a bigger picture question. Is it hard to judge Georgia guys because there's so much talent there that they don't have to play a lot, that during the regular season they're killing teams? And I don't. That's a bigger picture. I'm all over the place.
No, listen, that's a great question because it's a question I've started to ask some guys around the league, personnel people, and there's really no exact science to it. But if you want to use an example, we know Kirby Smart from Georgia, right? He came from Alabama, and for quite a while, Alabama had this reputation of doing the same thing, putting a lot of guys in the NFL. And of course, there have been some great hits, right? But there have also been some pretty big misses, not because the talent was there, but because they came into the NFL and it seemed like they were already like damaged or worn out. I mean, there are a couple of linebackers going back in the day from Alabama, some safeties who didn't pan out, a couple of corners, some D linemen. We saw here the offensive lineman that Stoutland worked with, whose name's escaping me, Chance Warmack.
Chance Warmack
is a guy who didn't play as well in the NFL nearly as well as Alabama. But they also have a big hit rate. So, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of guys in Georgia that hit. But if you just go look so far, it's too early. But you'd have to go back and look. How did Devontae Wyatt do last year? Right now, he's best known for shoving referees, right? Who are some of the, I don't know how
Walker. Jacksonville reached, in some people's estimation, taking him where they took him.
There you go. The guy, you said Trayvon Walker. There was who's the other linebacker? Quay something, whose name is escaping me right now.
Yeah.
But so I think it's a question that doesn't have an answer yet. We have to see kind of down the line how, because there have been such an influx lately. DeAndre Swift came from Georgia, great player,
but he was in a loaded backfield where he didn't have to be an every down guy.
Exactly.
But I think we've also seen the smaller linebacker excel in the NFL. Whereas DNs are getting smaller, the linebackers also are getting smaller and quicker. It used to be we were so used to, if you weren't a 6'3" to 6'5" linebacker, 265, 270, you didn't turn your head. But now these guys 6'1", 220, 6 foot 220, 215, and they're Pro Bowlers. So many of them are Pro Bowlers now. So what he lacks in terms of experience right now, and talk about and Dean, I'm just hoping he can find a way, Desai can find a way to utilize him and have him be that disruptive force that he was at Georgia. But as we know, when you look at a college player's numbers, a lot of those numbers are inflated by inferior opponents they're playing. Here, the worst team in the NFL has Pro Bowlers on it. They all have their little techniques and tricks on how to control certain players. So he's got a whole lot of little nuances he's got to learn to be that player that he hopes we would be. And hopefully this coaching staff can get the best out of him in that regard.
I would think so. Again, you guys know, he's not really a downhill linebacker, side to side guy. But obviously great instincts, great intellect. But let's be real about this. TJ Edwards had a really good year last year for the Eagles, right? So can Nakobe Dean play at a better level than TJ Edwards played last year? I don't know. That's a question that's got to be. It's going to be hard because at least for Eagles media and fans, we haven't really seen a linebacker play like that maybe since like Jordan Hicks' second year, and that's actually quite a while away. And that didn't last as long. He would wind up getting hurt, and then they wouldn't give him the money that he got from Arizona, which was amazing that he got. So, it's sort of like a wait and see thing. There's one thing that I'm tantalized by, and I know that they did this a little bit in OTAs. I didn't see it, but I was told about it. And that was using Nolan Smith in a little bit of a stacked linebacker role. So not the edge rusher, but sort of using him like a linebacker, which he did a little bit at Georgia. And if the Eagles, who pride themselves on being very, analytical and forward thinking, if they can sort of get out of the mindset, they don't have to, by the way, because Nolan Smith might be a great edge rusher. We'll see. But if they're really trying to get the next like Fred Warner, like a gem, Nolan Smith is said to have the kind of skill set that would translate really well with the long arms, the speed, the athleticism to be that kind of linebacker, a 3-down linebacker who can defend the run, he can cover, you can blitz him, and he can be everything the way Fred Warner is in San Francisco's defense. But, the Eagles always want to take a guy like that and make him an edge rusher, and you can understand why. But they're running an entirely different defense the last few years. We've seen, we have to talk about the Eagles defense way differently than we ever have. Overhang players, 5-2 fronts, 5 techniques, 4 eyes, things like that. And maybe with Sean Desai, I don't know, maybe they'll look at Nolan Smith and say, we can really make this guy into 4, 5, 6-time Pro Bowl linebacker that way.
Isn't that the misnomer about him too, Jeff? Like that he can't play the run? He played the run very well in college. I think people just assume size, that he's just going to be, not that this is a bad thing, but, like Hassan Reddick, where you just almost, exclusively use him as an edge guy. It seems to me if he can hold up physically, he can do a lot more than that. No?
Yeah. What happens to guys like him, Rob, in college is there'll be some tape of a pulling tackle coming over and flattening him because he's, you're 230 pounds versus 320 pounds.
Yeah.
So it's a battle you're going to lose a couple of times. And so the question will come, can he really defend the run? But everything I was told was that despite his size, he was a willing run, a tackler and good run defender.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jeff, I think one of the key storylines to really keep a close eye on, as you guys will, is this relationship or this so-called vague relationship between Darius Slay and Matt Patricia. Slay was asked the other day.
Darius.
He said cordial. What the heck does cordial mean? To me, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of forgive and forget. Now, Darius okayed the move, but still, I think that's one thing that a lot of pundits, especially national people coming in, are going to be trying to watch this and probe this day in and day out about that relationship.
Yeah, and I don't know if I were to judge it like a referee, I would think that the onus is on Matt Patricia to come to Philadelphia and slow his roll and adjust and learn from his mistakes, not Darius Slay. Because Slay went out and proved that Patricia was wrong about him.
Right.
Patricia went out and proved he was a very bad head coach, and not just a bad head coach, but not a leader of men, right? And then he went out and last year and was forced to be the offensive play caller and didn't exactly shine in that role for New England either. So if there's one of these two guys that needs his image repaired and by doing so needs to kind of get with the program a little bit, it ain't Darius Slay.
No, it's a great look. I think the Eagles played it smart. Look, you could debate whether or not you bring him in or not, but at least they approached Slay, I thought, beforehand, showed him that respect. And to Slay's credit, he didn't, maybe he balked, but when they got to a point where he said, okay, fine, do it. I mean, so at least they're going to be able to get that done. I wanted to ask you about Christian Ellis, who I thought when he got an opportunity last year, I know you and Adams talked about this on Inside the Birds, really looked good, not just special teams, made a couple plays also. Is he a legitimate candidate in your estimation to be more than just a special teams guy?
From what I understand, he has an opportunity here. They obviously signed Nick Morrow, who had a nice year in Chicago, made a ton of tackles, has played the position at the NFL level for a couple of years now, so he has a leg up. Very interesting thing on Nick Morrow. I don't know if a lot of people realize this, and it still shocks me to this minute, but he got no guaranteed money. Like,
really,
almost everybody who signs a contract gets a little guaranteed money, right?
Yeah.
He got none, as far as I understand.
Huh.
So that doesn't exactly scream a whole lot of confidence.
And he must have had no options either.
And I don't know why you would even sign that early if you had no. I mean, but either way, but it's still. I mean, you sign with the Eagles for no because you look at the landscape and say, well, I should be able to make my base salary because I think I'm making this team.
Right.
So that'll be an interesting competition. I think we've seen quite a bit throughout the years that how the season starts at linebacker isn't how it always ends. The one thing about Christian Ellis and the opportunity he's given is that he's 233 pounds, which for an Eagles linebacker is pretty good. Yeah. And he runs really well at 233 pounds. So the one thing that we also have to remember, though, even though he had all these picks in OTAs and looks good, is that the guy was cut from the practice squad, a couple of times before being back. So it's not like the Eagles 2 years ago had some great transition plan for him to eventually be a starter. Just the way sometimes things work out, though. So he'll be getting a chance to compete, and we'll see if he can do it. The one thing you guys have seen this so much. How often do we see a guy play really well in the OTAs and training camp, but he didn't get the starting job because he just wasn't the guy to start with, right? And then by, again, week 3, week 4, like TJ Edwards a couple of years ago instead of, who was it? Eric Wilson, right?
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
What a
it was
disaster.
so clear in training camp. TJ Edwards was like really coming into his own. Even Davion Taylor, when he was healthy, was starting to play well. But week 1, it was Eric Wilson and Alex Singleton. Okay. And then all of a sudden things didn't go well. And all of a sudden TJ Edwards is in. And the way he played, everybody was like, how did you not start the season with this guy? He's clearly a better player. So it doesn't really matter how it starts. It just matters, what's the best combo. And hopefully they find it fast enough.
So Moshe, on the other side of the ball, there's not a team in the league that has a deeper stable of backs and interchangeable backs than this Philadelphia Eagle team. But I ask you this because I love to do this, and people hear what they want to hear. And I've used the term lead back, not feature back, lead back in this offense. So where we sit right now, from your perspective, who's the lead back in this offense?
Oh man, it's hard to think that DeAndre Swift is not the lead back. I mean, if you're just using, they gave up a 4th-round pick for him, right? So Rashad Penny was a 1-year deal with not a lot of guaranteed money. Kenny Gainwell is a candidate, but he's a 5th-round pick on the 3rd year of a deal. He did certainly supplant Miles there at the end in the Super Bowl. But if he was going to be the lead back, then I don't know that they would have went out and signed Rashad Penny and traded for DeAndre Swift. So when you put all 3 in a bucket and add Trey Sermon, you always read the tea leaves, right? You always read the paper trail. DeAndre Swift would seemingly be the guy that they want to be the lead back of this.
Yeah.
Did you guys think differently on that?
No, it feels that way to me too, Geoff. I posed this to Gunner yesterday. I'll ask you just on that note. Let's say Swift has a killer first series or whatever. Are they riding him the rest of the game? Are they almost pitch counting him because of the injury history? And same goes for Penny. Or do you just say, I'm not taking this guy out? He just lit them up in the last series. How do you handle that?
So I'm like chuckling inside at the question because like I spend a lot of time on the Inside the Birds podcast making fun in a playful way of the sort of no rhyme or reason to certain guys getting carries. Like Boston Scott, we talk about all the time. there are times where Boston Scott has taken the first carry of a game, and then you haven't seen him until the third quarter.
Right.
So I joke that there must be on the sideline spinning a wheel, and then wherever Boston Scott, all right, get him in the game. I cannot is Boston Scott a third down back? Is he a goal line back? Is he a first down back?
Is he a giant specialist?
Back? Is he just a Giants killer? Like, I don't know. They just throw him in 3 times a game, and I'm like, how did the script call for that 2nd and 3 for him to get? So I don't know, but I would think that they want to preserve DeAndre Swift. So they have enough bodies. And it wouldn't shock me if he went out sort of like that opening game last year when he had that 60-yard run against the Eagles and looks like a beast. But then sees Series 2 if Kenneth Gainwell's in. Because right now the only thing I really think I know about this is that I think DeAndre Swift's the lead back. And I think that Kenny Gainwell right now is probably still your 2-minute drill, 4-minute drill at the end of the game back.
Geoff, I said to Rob yesterday, I'm somewhat surprised that Boston Scott decided to come back here. Now, granted, they got him for a bargain basement price of $2 million. But you mean to tell me that there's not another team out there where him and his representation are thinking, we can get the same money somewhere else, but you will get more reps, which would probably enhance your marketability and financial ability in 2024. I'm surprised he settled so quickly to come back here knowing he was going to be last man on the totem pole, so to speak.
Gunnar, I am surprised for 2 years in a row that the Giants did not offer Boston Scott $1 more than whatever the Eagles offered him, and just sat him on the bench all year. We're going to pay you that money just to not kill us twice a year. Because 2 division games a year is pretty important in the NFC East, right?
Exactly.
Nobody's won this division 2 years in a row in 17 years.
Yep.
That's how important 1 division game is, let alone 2. But no, I am surprised a little bit. But then, I mean, take a step back. As much as we have seen Boston Scott fill a role and do nicely and kill the Giants, there are 100 Boston Scotts in the NFL, right?
True.
So if anything, the Eagles might value him more than other teams and pay him more than other teams were willing to pay him.
Yeah,
I feel like every team feels like it's got a Boston Scott somewhere on its practice squad or in its depth.
Well, he's also hurt by his numbers are not going to be great because he's been in backfields with, where they're going to spread the wealth a little bit too. Yes. So it's not like he can leverage that in an open market. Geoff, last one from me in all seriousness. And this is a more bigger picture than just Sippos, but they didn't at least appear to do a lot special teams wise to make changes. Michael Clay comes back. Sippos at least seems like he's the leader in the clubhouse at punter. Everybody likes Jake Elliott. It goes without saying.
He's your punter, Rob.
Have they done enough in your estimation here to improve that? Because, you can make a case there's a lot of areas they didn't have to do a whole lot of upgrading in, but that's certainly one of them.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's a good question. Have they done enough? I mean, certainly I feel like with what they've got at linebacker, Ellis is going to make this team either as a starter or a reserve. So he will start off on the special teams unit. If he starts, then maybe that moves Nick Morrow to special teams, and that helps you there. Zach McPherson's actually a pretty good special teamer.
And Sean Bradley's healthy.
Yeah, Sean Bradley, if he makes the team, might just make it for that, right? Yep. If healthy. I was a little surprised they waived Andre Chachere so early in the offseason. And then same thing with the other kid they got from Seattle, Marquise Blair. That was a little surprise to me. But certainly Sidney Brown, if he doesn't start, will be probably an excellent special teamer just based on his college resume. If he does start, that pushes Reed Blankenship into a special teams role. They didn't start the year with some of these guys, right? So I think that naturally, just the way they added, they should be a little bit better. But I also don't want to absolve Michael Clay here. He's got to do a better job as well.
No question. Is this a 14-win team again this year?
That's hard, D-Gun, man. Like when you got that, what's a 5-game stretch coming out of the bye against Kansas City, San Francisco, Buffalo,
Seattle.
Dallas, Seattle, New York. That's tough. And honestly, while I think this team's going to be really good, this defense is a very, very big question mark.
Yep.
I mean, it just is. Yep. So until we kind of get an idea of how it's going to look and what Sean Desai is going to do, it's hard. They're going to be in a lot more, I think, shootout type battles against those good quarterbacks. But I certainly think they'll still be a very, very good team. And, if you want to tell me they're still the best team in the NFC, I'm not going to argue it. You can put them in San Francisco with a healthy quarterback, and then maybe people aren't going to like me saying this, but I do think Dallas is going to be pretty good this year. I thought they made some really good
they've owned the Eagles,
additions.
Geoff. I mean, there's just it's real.
Yeah, I mean, shake it all up and pull out a name.
Yeah. I hear you. All right, Geoff, tell everybody where they can catch Inside the Birds with yourself and Adam Kaplan. You guys
everywhere.
Awesome. Everywhere. Yes.
Everywhere.
All right.
Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com, Inside the Birds YouTube channel. And Inside the Birds on we're at Inside Birds on Twitter, though. It's not Inside it's at Inside Birds on Twitter.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Keep up the good work, Geoff. We appreciate you giving us a couple minutes, man. Always great catching up with you.
Always fun, fellas. Have a great one.
All right, Geoff. Take care, man. That is Geoff Mosher, Inside Birds. He does an awesome job. He and Adam. It is must-watch stuff. I will tell you that, Gunner. Good information there. We'll come back. We'll get back to football in a little bit. When we come back, Scott Lauber, the great guest, just continue. Will be joining us to talk some Phils as they are rolling right now, Derek. 8 of 10. 8 of 10, my friend.
Look at you gloating. Look at you.
I am a happy camper. It was a nice late game. I fell asleep in the 9th or 8th, whatever it was. Phillies were rolling, and I woke up and I said, all right, they didn't fall apart. It's all good. All right, so we'll do all that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. That's Derek. I am Rob. We're Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let's talk about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, because knowing who to trust with your finances can be a tricky thing, that's for sure. But I found the right person, and the right person is Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group. Whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review, if you have a small business and you're trying to get those employee benefits off the ground, it's another resource that Jim can help you with. I've said this to you before. What I really like also is if you're confused by something, if you're seeing a trend, if something's happening, you're wondering about something you invested in, he is just a quick phone call away. All right. I personally entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollover with Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. You will be too. Give him a call, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751. You could also email him, Murray, MURRAY.Jim@principal